But first, are you feeling under the weather? Maybe some arsenic is the answer. Yes, said her husband. Or could crystal meth be the cure? That might sound crazy to us, but these are just a few of the bizarre medical treatments prescribed to our predecessors. Here with some of history's weirdest cures. Please welcome curator of Bart's Pathology Museum, I shan't be standing still for very long, Carla Valentine. Lovely to see you. So, they seem to try and say, what were they based on? You know, did they suddenly get a whim and think, we'll try this?
I think so. I mean, an awful lot of quack medicine was around during the Victorian era and up into the sort of early 20th century. And with things like the tapeworm, there's this sort of idea that it would help you lose weight. Obviously, the more we know about tapeworm, the more we know that it's not likely.
I can't imagine a supermodel swallowing one of these. Actually, oh gosh. So the idea is, we learnt about tapeworms at school, didn't we? I do when we were young. They occupy the large intestine.
They occupy the intestine, and they can be swallowed in a sort of pill form, but as eggs, which will then mature into the tapeworm. And there's a lot of advertising evidence to say that they were used as a diet pill. But in reality, they can't really consume enough calories to make enough of a difference to our weight. They also take in all your nutrients, so you're not going to look very good. And they create abdominal ascites, which is a fluid.
All in all,
it's not a good idea.
No to the tapeworm, really. Okay. Right. Okay. Next on my list is gladiator's liver for epilepsy. I told you they were odd.
Well,
liver.
The consumption of corpses in medicine is very, very well known, actually. And you wouldn't think of the Victorians as being cannibals, for example, but they used to ingest an awful lot of mummies as treatments for things like internal bleeding, to headaches. Leonardo da Vinci used to talk about the fact that if you ate parts of corpses, you would imbibe their qualities. So the idea, I suppose, with a gladiator, you would think, would be that you would take in their strength. For epilepsy, which is apparently what it used to be eaten for, I'm not really sure how it would cure that, but there was certainly an awful lot of cannibalising of medicines.
Perhaps best avoided, really, except with onions. Then it's all right. What on earth would you use an ice pick for?
Now, this is all about frontal lobotomies, which many of you may have heard of. Very, not popular, but they were common through the 30s, 40s and 50s.
I bet they weren't popular. Sorry, Carol, you were one of these. Oh, lovely, off you go.
The actual lobotomy itself was all to do with separating the frontal lobe of the brain from the rest of the brain.
So what would they do with this?
So with the ice pick, what they used to do was they would put that through the eye orbit, the eye socket, and they would basically hammer that straight in.
I wonder why I couldn't eat that cake.
Blancmange, you'll never eat blancmange again.
Never eat blancmange.
So that, and what it would do is it was for very severe sort of psychiatric disorders. It would turn people into vegetables, really. It would, but it had a lot of side effects. Only worked in 2 out of 3 cases, and it became illegal by around 1967.
For that. Yeah. So when I was at school, they could still have used it. That's really rather worrying, isn't it? Now, mercury for syphilis. Yes?
Yeah, mercury is...
That's the lady on the front row.
I have an example of syphilis here from my collection. You may be able to see the sort of ulceration of the bone here. Syphilis affected an awful lot of people for hundreds of years, and mercury was the treatment. The thing about mercury is it's very toxic in its own right. It's one of the most toxic elements that isn't radioactive, and it would cause kidney problems, mouth ulcers, so all of those things added to the syphilis symptoms.
Because it was used in making hats, wasn't it? Top hats?
Well, it
mad
was,
hatters,
exactly. Yeah, it causes dementia, flamboyant behaviour, emotional instability, so all of these things that describe the mad hatter.
A word of warning here, don't eat your thermometer. Urine. And now, there are certain actresses who always said to drink their own urine because it was good for them. But for tooth whitening?
Well, a lot of these treatments do seem to be coming back with Hollywood celebrities. It would whiten teeth. It has ammonia in it. It's a very gentle bleach, but there are far more palatable ways, I think, to whiten your teeth.
They've got the word there, palatable.
That being said, not that I would advocate it at home, but urine does have many, many medicinal uses. It was used in the battlefields when soldiers were wounded. It was because urine is sterile. It was much more sterile to actually wash the wounds with the urine than any type of water. And people do swear by it now for eczema, psoriasis, a lot of skin conditions.
Still use
So yeah, as I say, I wouldn't advocate it, but
neither, I guess, would you advocate arsenic.
No, I
What
wouldn't.
on earth did they use that for?
Well, this was supposed to treat psoriasis, which is unusual because it causes arsenic keratosis, which is a kind of horny eczema type growth. So really, you'd be better off putting urine on there than you would arsenic, so certainly wouldn't advocate that one.
Now, we all know about, we used to have a friend who's gin and tonic. He said, oh yes, to help cure the malaria. So tonic water does contain quinine,
It does,
which, is that an effective malaria?
Yeah, quinine is it's an alkaloid, and it is anti-malarial, antipyretic, anti-inflammatory, which means it's good for fevers. But old tonic water, which used to contain quinine, would have an awful lot more than nowadays. So we don't have a good excuse anymore to be drinking gin and tonic, but it did cure malaria or treat it.
It's the saddest piece of news I've heard
I know.
all day. Crystal meth then. Hitler used to get crystal meth.
Hitler did. Up until about the First World War, drugs were very commonplace for a lot of people. It was called the Great Binge, and you could sort of pop out to Harrods and you could get a hamper with cocaine, heroin in it. You could send them to the soldiers on the front line in World War I, and they were still being used, various different drugs throughout the different wars, crystal meth in particular because it kept people awake, as you can imagine. And Hitler had some very strange ideas about medicine. He was a bit of a hypochondriac, so he used to get that injected every single day.
Hitler had some very strange ideas
Well,
about medicine.
it might explain a lot, I think.
What I am very curious, I would like explaining, is whose this is. Okay, who donated this? Okay, the horse who passed this should be shot. Fascinating stories. My thanks to Carla Valentine. Thank you, Carla. Don't try any of it.